Hello, and welcome to I EDU Day 2. Today we're going to talk about the Speaking TOEIC Part 1. The Speaking TOEIC Part 1 is simply reading a passage which is given to you. There are 2 grading points for Part 1, reading the passage. All you're graded on for this are pronunciation, which is the mechanics of the speech. How well can you say each specific sound, and how well do you put those specific sounds together into making a word? For instance, do you say th or d? O, v, f, w are all some of the sounds that sometimes cause problems for Koreans especially. The other grading point is intonation and stress. Intonation and stress are simply the flow and rhythm of the language. How does it fit together? There are ups and downs in every language, and that's what intonation and stress is trying to look at. Now, the problem is that many people take pronunciation and they turn this into Konglish. So they mix Korean and English together. They try to use English with Korean sounds. And the problem is that it actually starts to make different words. My name, for instance, my name's Charles Copeland. Charles Copeland is actually 3 syllables long, but if you write it in Korean, it comes out as Charles Copeland. That there's no R sound, there's no Z sound, and there are a lot more syllables in it. And it might be hard for someone to understand if you say Charles Copeland instead of Charles Copeland, if that's what they're expecting to hear. The length and the spreading out and the changing of letters. Some other examples that have this happen is fish. Fish is actually usually said by Koreans as pishi. That's a very Konglish. That's what you would end up with if you tried to write the word fish with Korean symbols. Pishi, and so it ends up not being the right word. And actually, PC is getting close to personal computer, which would cause a lot of computer confusion. If you say, I want a PC for lunch, are you going to eat a computer? It might actually cause confusion. Also, words like raw and law, where you actually have a difference as the first letter and it's an R or an L, it can cause problems because Korean only has the Lil symbol. So when you Konglish something like raw fish and you end up with law pishi, what are you ordering? Another one is toothbrush. So if you look at the word toothbrush, there's a couple problems with it. Number one, the TH sound. Making it an S is fine as long as you don't add the afterwards and extend the word by an extra syllable. Also, the combination of letters for the B and the R can cause problems. It extends the word. And this is one of the things that is listed as a reason that people can't understand what someone is saying. If they're expecting a 2-syllable word and you make it 5 syllables, like toothbrushi, okay? It becomes very hard to understand versus toothbrush. The most common phoneme problems in the consonants are L, and you'll notice that L and R are there. Maybe you get confused and you say an R instead of an L because it's English. The letter Lil is actually closer to the English letter L most of the time. So light and right could be confusing if you use the wrong one. And Z is another one. Now, Z is fairly easy because Koreans have been studying English enough that they understand that there's a different sound. The problem becomes when you have a word that's carried over or a word that doesn't actually, it has the Z sound, but it has an S written. Sometimes that comes out as was, instead of was. Zebra, that usually isn't too bad. The BR is usually worse in zebra than the Z sound because you've learned that word. It does become hard when you end up with a word that has overlap. The SH sound, sh, is not too hard if you follow it with an E because that is the most common time for that to happen. You say Han Shigan in Korean, so the sh sound is there. But when you say a sound after it like oo, you don't have a sh sound. So it's hard to make some words like shoe instead of shoe, okay? So ship, ocean, and SH is not always written with an SH, which is another problem. It can be the CE, it can be TI, like action. So there's a lot of sounds that can actually end up making the SH. The next one is the Z sound. Now, Z does not exist very often in English because it is actually a French sound. But there are some words that have been adopted from French that have kept the Z pronunciation, like pleasure, beige. You'll also notice that the sound is not happening at the beginning of words hardly ever. So it's just in the middle of the word. So you have to be careful that you don't turn it into j, turn it into pleasure. It might be a little bit harder to understand because of the extra sound, the change in the sound. Another sound is TH. Yes, both THs. We use special symbols. This is IPA symbols that are based on Greek and Roman symbols. But the first one that has a circle with the line through it is the soft TH. Thing, thought. Now, it's not too bad if you say it in a word that it has to be a TH. But some words also begin with an S or have an S in that place. So if you say month and you say months instead, probably would be understood because months is not a word. But sing is a word. So thing, sing might cause some problems in communication. The hard TH, the th sound, that, is hard to make and for many people of different languages. Just try to do as best you can with that one. The other ones are words like F, so photo, coffee, both have an F sound. F is not always written with Fs, which is another problem with English. The biggest problem with this is probably coffee, not photo, because photo in Korean is sojin, so it's a different word, so you don't have as much problem understanding that sound. Coffee in Korean is kopi. If you're used to going to a coffee shop, in Korean, it's going to be hard for you to change over to coffee. So that's where the issue comes in. And it's the same problem with V, with like video and violin, because if you've played the violin for 12 or 13 years already, and you've used the Korean for it, which is violin, you're probably going to mispronounce it in English because you're used to saying it. So it becomes almost second nature to say that. W causes problems with some words, but not all. When it's followed by an oo or an o, it becomes hard. Ah, e, no problem. You have that in Korean. You don't have woo and wuh. So wood, wolf are two words that I hear a lot that come out as ud. You drop the W. And it's because in Korean you treat the W sound as either oo or o. So making those sounds after the W becomes very hard. So you have to be aware that we do add a w sound in front of oo sometimes. Intonation and stress. Intonation and stress has several parts to it, for part 1 especially. The first is, when do you breathe? Or when do you take a pause? And this is actually part of the grading issue with actually taking the speaking TOEIC, is people take breaths at the wrong time and it makes it difficult to understand. And the reason why is you're not chunking things together. And yes, chunk is the technical word. A chunk is a set of language that should go together. An example of this is the infinitive. To eat. You would never break up to eat. They're always going to be said when you have those two words together. So you wouldn't say to eat. I like to eat. It's hard to understand with the pause there. If you say I like to eat, then it's easy because that's a chunk. The verb and the infinitive of purpose that are actually describing that verb should be together. I like to eat pizza is very understandable. I like to eat pizza is harder to understand. So how you chunk things together is going to be a factor in intonation and stress. And then it's just how smooth and fluid the language is. Languages have a music. They have ups and downs, where the speaker speaks louder and slower sometimes, and at other times he speaks faster and the words run together some. That's the smoothness and fluidity, which is part of intonation and stress. Most of the time, the words that actually get stress are content words, and these words carry meaning. They always have some stress. You have to stress them. And so they're a little bit longer and a little bit louder than a normal word would be. Lists of content words might include things like nouns, verbs, adverbs, and adjectives. Also possessive pronouns and demonstratives. And not and negative words, because we usually speak in the positive when we're talking about things. So you have to stress those words. Function words. Okay, now function words don't get stressed. Why? Well, they're grammar glue. They are there for grammar, not for meaning. So when you're speaking them, you don't have to speak them as much. They are important in writing. They do have some meaning, but they don't carry meaning. You can understand a sentence without them, but you can't understand a sentence with only them. They're less important when you're speaking because you can understand it without it. So they have less or no stress. Function words include such things as prepositions, articles, possessive adjectives, personal pronouns, conjunctions, and auxiliary verbs. Now, if you have multiple function words together, sometimes they get run together. This is a form of reduction. And in certain cases, it always happens. Contractions are very similar. Actually, they're just written that way. Now, you should use them more in speaking, not in writing. If you're doing formal writing, you would actually write, I am. But when you're speaking, you would almost never say I am unless you are angry. You would say I'm. Reductions are similar, but there's no standardized spelling. Spaces between words disappear, and even letters can change. For example, okay, here's an example of a function words getting linked together. What did he eat for lunch? Okay, what did he are all function words. So eat and lunch are the only two content words. If you say eat lunch, well, you would understand that. Now, what did he are three function words together. For is by itself, so we're going to not do anything with it. We take the spaces between the words away, between what did he, and the words are going to jam together, and in IPA, they would look like what did he. And that would actually be the pronunciation, what did he, okay? The H disappears because, well, H's are not strong words. They're hard to make, or letters, so they're hard to make. So they disappear when people say them. So it's going to come out more, what did he eat for lunch? This is the flow of the language. Another example, what do you? It's hard to say that without actually putting gaps between the words. And we should not gap between the words unless we're angry, because they don't really carry that much meaning. What do you like? Really, you could get away with just like, and people would understand you. It would sound kind of babyish, but you could do that. So instead you would say, what'ya, or what'ya, okay? And it's still a little bit hard to say, but it is much easier than what do you, what'ya. It's still a little bit harder to say, but you could actually say in an easier way, you could say whatcha. Would make it easier. So it's all about what is easier to do, because these words are not carrying content for the listener to hear. Some other common reductions: ought to, oughta, have to, have-to, has to, would have, woulda, could have, coulda, may have, maya, might have, mighta. And you will notice that the H's disappear when they're in the middle of a word. And sometimes T's turn into D's. But those are the common types of things that end up happening. The V's and have disappear because they're kind of hard to say. So we don't. Now, on to the specific to part 1. During the preparation time, so at the beginning, try to find if there are any places that might cause a problem when reading, like long words, phonemes or letter sounds that you're having problems speaking. So during the preparation time, so you have 45 seconds to prepare and then 45 seconds to speak. Look for spaces to take breaths. It's the most naturally when you have a comma. Breath should come with punctuation. So with commas and with periods, those are good places to take breaths. Next of all, when you're practicing, record yourself. And this is why you have a homework to send it, is to force you to record yourself. After you've finished, play the recording back to see if there are any problems. Can you hear with your pronunciation? Can you hear any problems with your intonation and stress? How can you make them sound better? Kind of timing the preparation and reading times is also important. 45 seconds to read, very possible, because, well, the ones in the practice are a little bit longer than the ones on the actual test, so don't worry about times on today's page, but you need to actually think about how you would do this. So practice timing, especially with the preparation, because you will run out of time there when you're practicing. Work in a team, okay? If you have somebody else you can work with who likes studying English, try doing this and try critiquing each other. Critiquing does not mean only saying negative things. Critiquing means saying what is good so that they can keep doing that, and saying what is bad, and how to improve it. These are the kind of things, this extra set of ears, if it's someone that will actually give you honest critique, can help you find your own errors later. Because once you've diagnosed a problem, I'm having troubles with LR, there are ways to make it better. Read a text tips. You have 45 seconds to prepare and 45 seconds to read. Most of the readings are around 80 words. The ones in the practice are more. The reason for that is to make sure that it's harder in practice than it is on the test. It's graded for pronunciation and intonation and stress, which I talked about before. If you want some more help with your pronunciation or intonation and stress, here are two websites. The U Iowa is the first one, is actually from University of Iowa, and it is tied with their phonetics lab. The second one is BBC, it's Learning English section, and they actually have some videos about pronunciation. It is British pronunciation, not American pronunciation. University of Iowa has American pronunciation. So, reading a text, 45 seconds to prepare, 45 seconds to read. Great. Focus on first time through pronunciation issues. Record yourself reading. And, use a cell phone. Everyone has a recording device. Even flip cell phones have a record voice type function because they have good microphones in them, because that's a big part of a telephone. Here we go. So I'm going through and I'm practicing. I'm looking for hard words like earned, money, bakery, okay? Or where the periods are. Okay, I see a period after bread, so no problem. Double duty dough mixer, okay? Double duty dough mixer, okay? Bearing, that's got an R in it, so say it. Bearing. Machines, clean, okay? Directly. Dishwasher. Stainless steel appliance, okay? Going through that. Fraction, automated. So I'm only reading the long words, but I'm also looking at where periods are in the statement. Beginning, temperature. Now this is a really hard one. First of all, it has too many words, almost double, and it has a lot of high-level words in it. So when you're going through this, before you read it, you would be able to get through the whole passage. Then, when you hear a beep, go ahead and start reading. You don't need to spend all of your hard-earned money on bakery bread. Making your own bread at home is easy with the new double-duty dough mixer by Bearing. Unlike other bread machines that can be difficult to clean and store, the double-duty dough mixer breaks down into 5 parts that can go directly into your dishwasher. This stainless steel appliance will mix dough for you in a fraction of the time it takes to knead dough by hand. The automated delay feature at the beginning of the mix cycle gives your ingredients time to reach room temperature, ensuring that your bread will rise as high as bakery bread. We guarantee that the accompanying Bearing Best Brands recipe book will be a family favorite. That was an example of the reading. Now, this one was too hard. The ones on the test will be much easier, down to about 80 words instead of, I believe this one has 140 words, so it's almost double the length. But I wanted to go through it for a teacher example. Okay, 45 seconds to prepare, 45 seconds to read. Read once, focusing on pronunciation issues. Record yourself. Okay, here's the next one, and this is one for you to practice with. While you're practicing the first time through, thinking around 45 seconds, you should go through the hard words. Shopping, sightseeing, running, minute, vacation, work, vacation, Blue Valley Inn, beautiful, clean country air, spectacular, spacious, swimming, outdoor activities, perfect, vacation, prides, personal, attention, Blue Valley, motto, happy guest, greatest treasure. So I've gone through this, I've hit the hard words. I'm also looking for the commas and the periods because I'm going to take a break there. And that was 45 seconds. Now start reading. And you should be finished right now. That was 45 seconds of reading. Did you get finished? If not, you're probably not reading fast enough. If you started when I said start. Now listen to your reading. What's wrong? Are the phonetics, are the individual words, the sounds you make in the words hard to hear? Is the rhythm and speed okay? How's the intonation? How's the stress? How does it sound? If you played this tape for someone else, would they understand you? These are the questions you should be asking in your self-assessment. Now, the next one I will leave with timing for you to be able to take as homework. So the next part of this video, you can just read along with while the video is playing on your computer and record yourself, possibly on your phone, and upload it to the LMS. So this next one is homework. Okay, here we go. 45 seconds to prepare. When I say go, it's time to start reading. And go. And that completes 45 seconds. So, you should have a recording for the last section. If you did not, back up the tape and try it. So, upload it to the FLMS. It is worth 10 points for this class. Grading is based on whether you completed the assignment or not. It will be checked to make sure that you actually have something on your tape, but we will not be putting a grade on it as ABC type grading. Thank you. Now move on to the business section, business English section of day 2.